Ed, any green on this mushroom?
Nope. No.
No.
Good, good. You can kind of see where the mushroom is coming from. Like it's growing out of the ground like a plant. So that can be kind of confusing. But see this white stuff right here? That's kind of like the mushroom's roots, but they have a different name. They're called mycelium, which is pretty fun to say. So I would highly recommend learning that word, mycelium. So you can see they're tiny white threads, and they're intertwined around all these leaves and like dead material in the forest. And Emily, am I stealing any of your thunder if I explain how this is working?
No, not at all.
So they're basically sending out these little chemicals that break down the leaves and the wood, just like our stomachs break down cheesecake or your other favorite foods. Except the mushrooms do it on the outside of their bodies, and then they take in those nutrients. And Maggie, what were you telling me about water in mushrooms?
Yeah, so another thing I was reading is, plants grow very, very slowly, and that's through this process called cell division. But mushrooms will grow through cell enlargement. And so that's how, you can walk out one day and see nothing, but then the next day you're going to come out and see a whole bunch of mushrooms.
That is so cool. Yeah, so and this right here, this is kind of like just the apple, and the rest of the apple tree, if you will, is all throughout the forest floor. So this is just one small part of the whole mushroom, actually. This is just the fruit. And so if you look at the one Maggie has, actually, that's just like the fruit of that big organism.
Is the fruit the whole part that we picked, the top and the stem?
Yeah, but most importantly is the top. So if you zoom in on those spores underneath, or sorry, the pores, looks like a little sponge. And instead of producing seeds like a plant, the mushrooms make spores. And to our eyes, it just looks like dust. They're so tiny. And those spores can ride on the wind and get actually all the way into the upper atmosphere, which is kind of crazy. And then, if the spores from this mushroom lands in just the right spot, it can slowly start making a new organism. So those are some differences between plants and mushrooms.
We have a question. Is the mushroom edible?
It's a good question. I think the one Maggie has is edible, and we'll talk a little bit more about that after Emily takes us on a tour of some rotting logs. But, in general, mushroom identification is pretty tricky. So I only eat mushrooms that are easy to tell, apart from the poisonous ones, because there are dangerous ones out here in the forest that, could kill you if you ate them. So you gotta be really careful.
We have another question.
Awesome.
How do plants grow?
Do you mean mushrooms?
Mushrooms. How do mushrooms grow?
How do they grow?
Yes.
What do you think? What ideas do you have already?
What do you think, Remy?
Grow underground?
Yes. Yeah, some of them also grow on trees. Emily's going to show you some that grow on dead logs. And, to make it really simple, they're turning all these dead leaves and dead sticks. That's what they're eating. That's what they're using to grow. And as they eat it, it breaks these things down and turns it back into soil, basically. So they're turning, what you can actually see right here. I mean, these leaves have been crumbled into such tiny pieces that they're just becoming dirt, soil. So if we didn't have mushrooms, in theory, this whole forest would just be full of dead logs and dead leaves. We probably couldn't even walk through here.
So they're important for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think they might be the most, I think mushrooms are running the forest. They're in charge out here. So yeah, they're very important. Well, Emily, you want to proceed with a tour of some logs?
Yeah.
Make sure you have time for you.
Of course. All right, so this is Emily taking over. I'm the cameraman. So I want you to know that for like the 45 minutes before this video, I was wandering around trying to find you the perfect fallen log. And there's actually like dozens of them. So I had a really hard time deciding which one I wanted to show you. But I'm going to start with this one for the sake of convenience. So here we have a log. And a log is a fallen tree. So I'm going to ask you all, you know, there's a live tree right there. What about this fallen log looks different to you from the tree next to it or any living tree? What do you notice about it that's different?
Emily,
The bark is all eaten up.
Yeah, it is looking eaten up. You notice, yeah, the bark is not wrapped around the whole tree anymore like it is there. It's not intact. What else do you see?
It's more
Emily-
dark than the other tree.
If you can kind of hold the
Darker?
camera still for a moment, it takes a second for it to
Yeah.
focus, and then we can see it better.
Cool, thank you, Darcy.
Mhm.
What are you all seeing now that I stopped moving around?
It's darker than the alive tree.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little kind of like trees, sort of like wood flakes kind of around it.
Yeah, you mean like these things?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, good observations.
Some of it looks like it might be rotting.
Rotting. Yeah.
Squishy.
Yeah. If I put my hand here, see how easy it is for me to break little bits of this tree off? If that was a solid living tree, do you think I could just snap the tree? I mean, not to flex, but I'm pretty strong. But I don't think that I could do that the same way that I can right now with this tree here. So if I'm gonna zoom in, there are some little pieces of evidence here that show that this tree is rotting, like someone said, that it's decomposing. Does anyone have ideas of what could be decomposing this tree? I see little tiny holes in the tree, there and there.
They might
See
be
an ant moving?
termites.
Termites.
Termites. I have a rotted log near me, so it's pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I encourage you all after this to go look for some rotting logs because I am having so much fun playing with this. It's so squishy. You can see so many little insects inside. Yeah, it's great. All right, so yeah, there are dozens of things that work to decompose this tree. So as I just saw, there was a little ant moving around. Now, ants don't eat fallen trees, but what they do, let's see if I can find one. There's an ant moving right there. What they do is they make fallen trees their home. So this little ant is moving around pieces of the tree and will make little tunnels inside for the ant to live with all of his ants, friends, and families. But like someone said, termites also dig tunnels through the tree and eat it, working to decompose the tree. There's also things called wood-boring beetles, which make tunnels and holes, like this hole that we see right there and there. But also, like Joe mentioned earlier, there's fungi and mushrooms that grow on trees that work to eat the tree. So I'm going to show you an example over here of a fungi on a tree. So this is just a smaller log piece of a tree, and look at this mushroom growing on it. Looks really cool. So this is an oyster mushroom. What does it smell like? I got asked. I'm gonna take a whiff. Hold on. I don't know how to describe that smell other than mushroomy. You know, it smells like a lot of other mushrooms I've smelled. But look on the underside. What do you notice about the underside of this mushroom?
It kind of has like lines and it looks super flaky. And also,
Yeah.
are these mushrooms edible or are they not? Or are these
Are
not?
these ones edible? Joe, what do you know? Are these edible?
Yeah, they are. Oyster mushrooms are,
Love those.
and I think they kind of smell almost like seafood.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
Is that where they get the name oyster mushrooms?
I think so.
Yeah. What's your favorite way to eat oyster mushrooms?
same way that I like to eat all other mushrooms. Fry them in butter.
Fry them in butter, you heard it here. If you're a vegan, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, someone mentioned that it looks really flaky under here, and I'm touching it and it's really soft, and I can feel each one of those ridges. Those are the gills of the mushroom. So yeah, there's an example of a mushroom growing on a decomposing log. So those mushrooms are working to tear this apart and decompose it back into leaf litter and soil like you see here. So there's a couple byproducts of the decomposition happening with fallen logs like this. So the first is that it's going to decompose into this like organic matter that's going to fall on the ground and become part of the soil. So I'm going to take you on a little trip over here to show you what that looks like when a tree is like almost totally decomposed. So do you see this big patch of brown right there? That at one point was a log, and you can still sort of see traces of it if you look down in here. That kind of looks like a log, right? And then down there, you can still see part of it, but the rest of it here kind of just looks like mulch. It's all just organic matter that has come back from that tree being decomposed by things like mushrooms and termites and beetles and worms. But I'm going to take you back to my original log. But another byproduct is carbon dioxide that goes into the air. So through decomposition by things on our logs, this organic matter is recycled into new things. So the amount of matter that exists in the universe is, or at least in Earth, is pretty much set. So there's like a finite amount of matter, and it just keeps getting recycled. Very little of it is lost outside the atmosphere. And that's different from energy, where energy flows and is constantly lost into space and comes back. So I also wanted to show you this section of the log over here. So this kind of looks lighter to me than this section over here. And it also looks kind of blocky. So I can break sections of this off. It's kind of, I think the word I would use is like cubic. Comes off in like square chunks like that. So I wanted to show you this because I was reading up on tree decomposition yesterday, and I learned that there are two types of fungus, like shelf fungus, so a type of mushroom that can grow on fallen logs. One of them is called brown rot fungus, and the other one is called white rot fungus. And so an indication that something has had brown rot fungus on it is that it leaves behind this brown blocky bit of the tree. Looks like that. If something is decomposed by white rot fungus, it will leave behind a sort of like stringy, almost spaghetti-like part of the tree, which is the cellulose behind. So I think this is cool that it makes all these like little blocky bits. And there's no brown rot fungus I can see on this tree here, but it's cool that I can maybe take a guess that that was at one point happening to this tree because it left behind the dark brown blocky bits of the tree instead of the white stringy cellulose of the tree.
So are there any of them that digest cellulose?
Yes. So yeah, the brown rot fungus, I should have mentioned, actually, the reason that you don't see the white stringy cellulose of the fallen log is because the brown rot fungus ate it. It digested all of the cellulose of the tree and left behind this bit. Whereas the white rot fungus, kind of the opposite, eats all of this brown blocky bit. That's what it digests. And then it leaves behind the white stringy cellulose. Yeah, pretty cool.
Cellulose is not easy to break down.
Actually, Joe asked me one time when we were on a hike, Emily, what would happen if you ate this log? You know, I didn't really want to eat it. It doesn't look as appetizing as, say, our mushrooms over there, fried in butter. But I didn't really have an answer. I think the answer is you shouldn't eat it because your body cannot digest cellulose. I mean, you could try if you wanted. I can't imagine it would be tasty. But your stomach would have a really hard time processing the cellulose inside the tree, unlike the brown rot fungus, which digested all of it and left behind just that brown blocky bit.
So that's a superpower.
Yeah, a superpower that I do not have. but mushrooms, they have it. So, all right, well there, I showed you some decomposing trees. I suggest that you go find some too. They're very soft and fun to play in. Yeah. So I think we're
Yeah.
gonna move on to Joe showing you some fungus.
I'll just say for a second, Susan pointed out that you can remember all the decomposers as the FBI, fungus and bacteria and invertebrates. An invertebrate is something without a backbone, like insects. So if you do go looking for a rotted log, those might be the three things. Each log might have a different combinations, different funguses, different bacteria, different invertebrates. Oh my gosh, Joe, what is that?
Oh, I'm just looking for the FBI.
Better than the FBI looking for you.
That's right. Yeah, does anybody have questions about logs for Emily before we move on?
June says that there are some mushrooms in her yard that she would like to show us in case anyone might be able to identify them. If you want to take it over there, June, let us know when you're ready and we will put them on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Also, just a little sneak preview for our field trip next week. American ginseng.
Oh.
Want to learn more about it? Join us next Friday. Okay, well, just like June's doing, we're just gonna make our way through the forest, looking at some really amazing mushrooms that are.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on June's screen. I think she's ready.
Okay, great.
Will you show us that mushroom again, June? Wow, did it get your attention because it's so big?
Wow, is that like the blue ones? So we have it in here.
June, are there what you would describe as warts on top of that mushroom? That's huge.
I am also noticing it has some of those liney type things on the bottom, like we saw in the mushroom at the beginning.
Yeah, it looks like it has gills, right?
Yeah, that's what those are called, gills.
Yeah, those are cool. I want to try to find something I think is in the same family, but there are some other cool things in my way before we get there.
Okay. Do you have any idea what family they might be in? Or are you going to wait to tell us till you find the other one?
I think it'll be easier to show the characteristics when I'm actually looking at one, but we're not far.
Okay, then I will switch over to your screen and we can compare. Thank you, June. Hopefully we'll get an answer soon.
Yeah, thanks, June. That's awesome. So, yeah, I guess we'll kind of make our way to trying to identify June's mushroom by, looking at some of the parts of the mushroom that are helpful to identifying them. Obviously, the color of the cap here, but looking at the underside can be actually a little more instructive. So you can see it has all these rows of white flesh that are called gills, and that's where the spores drop out of. So, you really want to look at whether those gills are connected to the stem, and these are. That can be helpful. And this is in the brittle gills, and you can see I just ran my finger across the gills and they broke. So they're pretty brittle. And these mushrooms, like many of the ones that we're going to show you here in the next 5 minutes, are actually their mycelium are connected right in with the roots of the trees in this forest, especially oak trees, beech trees. So it's kind of incredible, but they connect all the trees in the forest through those little white threads of mycelium.
You said those little white threads of mycelium were the things that go into the ground, kind of like the roots of plants, but different because they're fungus.
Exactly, Darcy. So in this one, you can see the gills actually kind of extend all the way down onto the stem. And that's something that is like the chanterelles. That's a characteristic of theirs. So this might be some kind of chanterelle that I've never seen. Also kind of like funnel shaped. So I'm gonna hang on to that one so I can get a picture of it later. But then, you know, some mushrooms have really different growth forms, like these. This is a type of coral fungus.
Coral. I was going to ask people if it reminded them of anything, and it definitely reminds me of coral.
Sorry, Darcy.
That's okay. Go ahead.
And I think these are feeding more on the leaf litter and stuff in the forest, but there are several clumps here. I'm just going to pull one up so you can see that's what the bottom looks like. Pretty shallow stem. That's where it was connected to the rest of the mushroom body. And there's a little beetle or something down there. And actually, you know, a lot of these mushrooms, especially as they're breaking down, are really important habitat for beetles, ants, flies, wasps, etc. All right, you guys, we need to find one of those amanitas. Here we go, I think. So this is a small example. Man, where were those big ones? Oh, they're there.
Big eggs.
The whole forest is just totally full of mushrooms today. This is, I mean, I don't think I've really ever seen such an eruption. Okay, so this, I think June's mushroom is in this family, the same family as this mushroom, which is the Amanita family. And it's kind of incredible to see, but this is kind of what the mushroom starts out in, is this little egg type thing, and then it bursts through in really a matter of hours. Like Maggie was teaching us that the cells actually can get bigger, so they can the mushroom can grow faster than like a plant that relies on the cells dividing. But so as they grow, they kind of keep a little piece of this egg, and it's called a veil. It's right there on the stem. And then a lot of them have like warts on the top there, which I think we can find on some of them. But 95% of all mushroom poisonings happen from the Amanita family. Now, the ones that June was looking at, they didn't look like the poisonous kind to me. Otherwise, I would have said, stop, don't touch those. But there are some really dangerous ones in this family.
Yeah, so sometimes it's hard to identify mushrooms down to the exact one. Sometimes you have to do something like leave them on a piece of paper overnight to see the pattern and color that their spores will make. And so when Joe says it's in the Amanita family, sometimes that's, unless you're like really study mushrooms, sometimes that's as far as you can get. Do you want to note, so it's 11 o'clock and we said we would stop now. If you need to leave, you can, but if you want to stay on, we'll answer any questions that anyone has. I see one question. So does that mean we should not touch certain mushrooms, Joe?
Yes, exactly. So there's a couple really dangerous ones. One is called the Destroying Angel, and it's in the Amanita family, but you know, instead of being like bright yellow and orange like this, it's white. But even then, I'm really cautious with anything that I think is in the Amanita family. And yeah, if I thought accidentally I touched it or something, I would definitely wash my hands right away. Because you know, if you just ate one mushroom this size, that would be deadly. And then there's others that actually are kind of common that grow, you know, on dead logs like this. They're called the funeral bell, and they're way more common than those amanitas, so that's kind of one to look out for. They're like orangish brown, grow on dead logs.
Yeah, so if you have touched a mushroom and you don't know what it is, it's just a good safety measure to wash your hands after you touch it, just in case you've gotten something not good on your hands.
And where is that blue one we were looking at? I've gotten lost.
A blue one? You found a blue mushroom?
Yeah, we found the milky indigo or indigo milk cap.
Does anyone else have any other questions while Joe is looking for the indigo milk cap?
So I'm going to show you guys one that I found down here. And I'm going to try to find that bright coral fungus again too. But yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. Great time to get out and look for some mushrooms.
How many colors can mushrooms be?
Oh, amazing question. What do you guys think about that? How many colors can mushrooms be? How many would you say we've seen today?
A lot.
At least like 7.
Okay, Maggie says we've seen at least 7 different colors.
A lot of orange and yellow and maybe like a beige, and white, red, blue. That's at least 7.
There are also purple ones.
There are
There are
even
purple ones, white.
glow in the dark ones if you're really lucky.
Oh, that's true.
I was wondering if people can name, I'm thinking of all the different mushrooms we saw, and some of them were really different shapes. What were some of the different shapes of mushrooms that y'all have seen or that we saw today? You can type it or shout it out. Like June's, I think, kind of was like an umbrella shape.
Yeah.
One of the ones I found had a bunch of mold on it.
Fungus on fungus.
Well,
It was really
double
good.
decomposition. You get bonus points.
We have a falling apart, rotting shape. You had that funnel one, the coral-shaped ones, the egg shape. There's a lot of different forms.
Northern tooth.
Tooth?
Yeah. There's a mushroom on a living oak tree up here that we were hoping to show you guys way too much, of course. But we're actually getting close. If anybody's still on, we'll show it to you.
Yeah, most people
Whoa.
are hanging on.
Oh, good. Here's some more growing right off a dead log. So those dark gills, I mean, that there's not a lot of mushrooms that have those, so that can be a helpful trait in identifying these, but I don't know what they are. It smells mushroomy.
Word of the day. Smells mushroomy.
Yeah, actually in this field guide I have, smell is one of the key characteristics, that can help you identify what mushrooms you're looking at. But like we were talking about, you gotta be careful about which ones you're sniffing.
So, and Joe said he wanted to show you one on a living tree. That is pretty unusual because, mushrooms are decomposers. It's usually easiest for them to decompose things that are already dead. But trees that are alive have chemicals in them that can help defend themselves from mushrooms. Was that what you wanted to show us right there, Joe?
No, we're almost there. Sorry, I got distracted.
Okay. Last chance for any questions. So I am gonna drop a link to our page about mushrooms. If you do want to go and look for mushrooms yourself after this, there's directions on there for making a spore print, which is where you take the cap of a mushroom and put it on a piece of paper and wait overnight or a day or two. When you lift it up, it'll make the pattern. You saw like those dark gills on the bottom side a second ago. And that can be a great way to make even make art with mushrooms or identify them. So try that out if you have a chance.
It's pretty fun.
And pretty.
And pretty.
Yeah, I'll drop another link in here, and that is to an artist who makes art out of mushroom prints.
Whoa. Okay, we're almost there. Seriously this time. Hey, is this a moldy hamburger bun? Nope. It's a mushroom. Okay, there's the warts. So those are the warts typical of the Amanita.
That does look a lot like
And their
the warts
gills.
on June's.
Mm-hmm. Hers has a short stem, but if you can see the gills, they do not attach to the stem at all. And this has a brownish hue in the middle. That's another characteristic to key in on. Yeah, maybe that could be its name, is the toasted marshmallow. Emily, do you want to talk about this? You want me to?
All right, the wait is over. We finally made it to this fungus on a living tree. So if you see here, there's this dark black shelf-like fungus, which Joe said is from the previous year on this living oak tree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like Darcy said, it's pretty abnormal for there to be a fungus, a decomposer, on a living tree. But it can grow on living trees where there's been damage to the tree. That's kind of its way into the tree. So some examples of that would be like where a branch broke off, so where there's a stub on the tree, or where the bark has come off and there's a scar from the bark being removed, maybe from an animal, like a deer or a beaver or something. So yeah, right there must have been some bark scarring from some type of animal taking off the bark on the tree that allowed the fungus to get in there and start to eat away the tree from the inside. Like Darcy said though, there's chemicals that help it fight the fungus, but this fungus seemed to have lived on for at least a year. And eventually, if a fungus lives on a tree for long enough, it can kill the tree. And then the tree would fall and all sorts of fungi would grow on the tree and decompose it.
Could you just get in real close there for a second, Joe?
I sure will.
Ah, that's a better view. You can see why they call it a shelf fungus. It kind of sticks out like a shelf. Anytime you see a mushroom in that shape, you can call it that, and you will be right.
This one's been here for so long, there's moss growing on it.
Plants on funguses.
So this one, I know I said it's last year, but it could be even older than that. And since I don't see any new ones, maybe the tree has fought it off and actually killed the mushroom, because the tree looks healthy as a horse.
Yeah, well, if it's in a damaged spot, the wood inside of a tree isn't technically alive. It's just the wood holding it up in the center. So it's the outside of the tree that stays alive. So maybe it's reaching that part and not hurting the living part. Okay, well, you've held you long past we said we would. So I am going to say goodbye to everyone. If you go out and find some mushrooms, I would love to see some pictures to them. You can put them in the comments on our blog, or you can email them to me, darcy@ruralaction.org. Ooh, that's another coral fungus, and maybe we will share them somewhere. So thank you so much, everyone who joined today. It's great to see some friends. And
thanks, everybody.
People.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.